My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore. And this is a movie that I had zero anticipation for. I was not excited for it in the slightest bit. I don't even know why I saw it. Now, I do love the Harry Potter movies. I think they're charming, they're entertaining, and they've got a certain magic to them that I just love. The first Fantastic Beasts movie is mediocre at best. The second one is just awful, and it kind of killed any anticipation I would have for any movie set in this universe for the future. And after watching this movie, yeah, that continues to be the case, and I just kind of want this franchise to die already. There is nothing about this franchise that really stands out in any way. It is just a bunch of movies that have no reason to exist. Let's talk about the cast, beginning with Eddie Redmayne. And I think Eddie Redmayne is a good actor. I think he's a very unique choice to lead a franchise like this. But unfortunately, he's just not getting properly utilized here. He just lacks any bit of personality or charm or charisma in these movies. I do think there's potential for him in the leading role, but they're not utilizing him. Then you've got his brother, played by Callum Turner, and I will say that I do find this to be very good casting. Like, the two look like brothers. That said though, Callum Turner did nothing for me in this movie. I thought he lacked any bit of charisma. He just had no screen presence whatsoever to him, and I couldn't care less for him. And the relationship between the two brothers, I didn't really, besides the way they looked, I didn't really buy that these two were brothers. There was just nothing about the way they're written that feels like they have like a closer bond. Then you've got Mads Mikkelsen, who I love as an actor. I think he's a great actor. I loved him as Hannibal Lecter. I loved him in The Hunt, in Another Round, and Riders of Justice. He's a talented actor. But unfortunately, whenever he gets casted in these big blockbusters, he always ends up getting wasted. I thought he added nothing to Rogue One, Doctor Strange, and now this movie. I'm not saying he did a bad job here, but I just think he's better in those smaller roles. You've also got Jude Law here, who I really like as an actor. I think he's charismatic. I think he's got some charm to him, and none of that comes through in this movie. He's on the screen and he just has nothing to work with. I think there's potential in this casting, but it's not getting utilized. And the big romance between Mads Mikkelsen and Jude Law just really added nothing to this movie. They don't play it up enough to the point where it feels like it has any bit of relevance. It's just something they bring up every now and again, and it doesn't add any personal angle to them. It doesn't add any added emotional stakes. It's just there for the sake of it. Then you've also got Richard Coyle, who plays Dumbledore's brother, and I just think he adds nothing to this movie. Then you've got Ezra Miller coming back to play Credence. And man, if my memory serves correctly, I believe Credence was like the big character in the first two Fantastic Beasts movies. Like, I'm pretty sure the other two Fantastic Beasts movies revolved around this character, and he just gets pushed so far to the back here. Like, he is given nothing to do. In the moments that he does have a little bit to do, I think Ezra Miller is really awful in this movie. Then we've got Dan Fugler, who I always thought was the heart and soul of the first movie. And they clearly know it as well, because they tell you like a billion times in this movie that he has heart, time and time again. It's just like, we get it. Look, I liked him before, but it's just more of the same here from him, but they find a way to make him even dumber, so I just don't like any aspect of how they handled his character. Then you've got Alison Sudou, who plays Queenie, and I've never liked this character. I think she's bad in this movie. And I think it would have been really great if they played up the fact that she's now on the bad guy side and she has to fight against Jacob, someone who she loves. That would be a terrific angle to really play up here, and they just do nothing with it. Without spoiling too much, I'll just say that I feel like they really backtracked that decision, and I just hated that. Then you've got Jessica Williams, who just did nothing for me in this movie. You got William Nadlin, who plays this character named Yosef, and the way this character is handled in this movie is laughably bad. Like, they try to go for all these twists and turns with him, but not a single one has any bit of impact, and it's just really poorly handled. Then you've got Victoria Yeats, who I thought was really awful and added nothing to this movie. The Fantastic Beasts characters have never been as good as the Harry Potter characters. Like, not only do you got Harry, Ron, and Hermione, but you've got Draco Malfoy, you've got Hagrid, you've got Luna Lovegood, you've got Neville Longbottom, you've got a bunch of great characters. And here, you don't really got anyone on the same level as them. So these movies have always had a decrease in quality with the characters and the cast. And this movie just adds all these new characters that do nothing, that just don't stand out in any way. So it's like a downgrade from the downgrade. And it's just so obvious. Like, no one has an ounce of screen presence in this movie. No one has personality. No one has charisma. There's not even that one performance that stands out above everyone else. Just everyone is equally as flat and as boring. Then you've got David Leitch directing this movie, and I liked what he did with his Harry Potter movies, because when the story takes a darker tone, I felt like his style really complemented that. But here, it just doesn't work. This movie is so lifeless and void of any bit of personality or life. There's no sense of magic, and it just feels like he needs to move on. He needs to do something else in his career, because he's just doing nothing new here, and he's doing nothing good, and the movie is just visually ugly. And speaking of people who need to move on from this franchise, this movie is written by J.K. Rowling, and it's also written by Stephen Kloves, and yeah, just nothing about the script is even remotely decent. It's all awful. The story here is completely non-existent. Nothing happens. I'm looking back on the movie and trying to think of everything that happens, and just nothing does. It's just a series of events going from one character to the next without any bit of cohesive flow to it. And it's just really bad storytelling. Like, things just happened for the sake of it, for filling up the one time. You know, like, we've got this long scene where Newt's in this prison, and it's just like, that really adds nothing to the plot. There's a scene where Jacob is at a dinner, and that scene really has no point. Where they go to Hogwarts, that really has no point. To be honest, I could probably say that about almost each and every scene. Just every scene feels so unneeded and unnecessary, and just adds nothing to the overall story. The majority of the characters have no arc. Newt is the same at the beginning of this movie as he is at the end. Same with Dumbledore, same with Newt's brother, same as Grindelwald. The only ones you could argue have any bit of an arc is Dumbledore's brother, Credence, and Creamy. And even everything regarding their characters in this movie just doesn't have an ounce of impact. They're terribly handled. So you've barely got any bit of a story, you've got no character work, and you've really got no deeper thematic meaning in this movie. So what's even the point of this movie existing? This movie exists only so they could be a sequel to Fantastic Beasts 2. That's it. There is a political angle to this movie, and just what it's trying to say about the real world is very obvious and doesn't work at all. And the last act of this movie is embarrassingly bad. Like, I was sitting in my seat like, oh my goodness. Like, this is awful. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes of nothing. Absolutely nothing. That is not an exaggeration. There is no tension. There is no stakes. There's no thrilling moments. There's no magical moments. There's just nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is something that this movie tries to do, where they try to keep the audience in the dark with what the characters are trying to accomplish, but it just doesn't work in any sense, because you're just like, okay, well, why would I be on board with this? What are they trying to do? It's like if the Mission Impossible movies didn't have the mission brief at the beginning of the movies, and then you're just like, okay, why do they need that? Why are they going there? What's going on? And you find your answers later on, but by that point, you're already lost, you already checked out. And there's one scene where they just throw in all these visual cues from the Harry Potter movies, and it was just laughably bad. Like, I'm sure some people are going to see it and be like, oh, that's the book from Prisoner of Azkaban, wow! But it's just empty fan service. Look, I love the Harry Potter movies, I really do. I think they're great. And it just sucks that yet another franchise has been ran to the ground. I used to love Star Wars. That franchise is ran to the ground. I'm excited for Doctor Strange 2, Thor Love and Thunder, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But after that, I'm kind of just done with the Marvel movies. That franchise is getting ran to the ground. Just every franchise that I once loved and adored is getting ran into the ground. It just sucks that this is the state of movies nowadays. There's nothing about this movie that's going to stand out to anyone. The way that people talk about the Harry Potter movies, they will never talk about anything in these movies the same way. These movies exist just for the sake of it. I've heard lots of people say that this is the best Fantastic Beasts movie yet, and okay, they're entitled to their opinion, but I just don't understand how anyone can think that. There is absolutely nothing that this movie has to offer. It is a complete bore. It is way too long and slow. Like, by the end, I checked my Fitbit for the time, every 2 minutes. I was just ready to leave throughout the entire movie. The story is awful and just, for the most part, non-existent. The characters are terribly handled. The performances are all flat and boring. The direction is flat and boring. Just skip this movie entirely. It's time for this franchise to end. So I'm going to go ahead and give Fantastic Beasts and the Secret of Dumbledore a 0.5 out of 10. I just really hated this movie. But do you know what the worst part is? Is that once this franchise is done, they're going to go ahead and reboot the Harry Potter franchise as a TV show, with book 1 being season 1. And it's just they're not going to be able to let this franchise, this IP go. And it just sucks. That's what Hollywood is all about these days. So, yeah. Anyways, have you seen Fantastic Beasts and the Secret of Dumbledore? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.